Hello and welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. It is time once again for a Shadows of Brimstone video, which is 10 years too late and almost nobody will see. I don't care, I really like Shadows of Brimstone, so I'm going to talk about it. If you don't already know, I only got around to picking up a core set of Shadows of Brimstone last year. I know, I am really on the cutting edge of gaming. I got the City of Ancients set. I had enough fun with the game to decide I wanted to expand it, but cautiously. Even one core set is a bear to organise, and I now have characters in individual zipper wallets, cards in organisers with racks for them during games, tokens spread across multiple tackle boxes, large map tiles organised by type in a swing file system, and miniatures magnetised and stored in crates lined with rubber steel. And even now I'm not done. I need to compile a reference document of the most important things I look up, organised in a more sensible manner than they are in the rules book and associated scenario books, which I personally find to be some of the most chaotic booklets included with any game I've ever played. It is a game that is very much focused on the story, the theme and the sense of epic adventure, without any real thought in how that adventure expands. So, cautiously does it. I have backordered the things I wanted the most, based on a plan I developed for expansion. No, Frontier Town isn't on the cards just yet. The plan is to flesh out the Targa Plateau and then acquire several more other worlds to explore. And while most of my backordered products are lost in another dimension, I have received some of the enemy packs I ordered for Targa. Today, we are going to take a look at the Custodians of Targa with Targa Pylons. This was literally the first expansion I decided I wanted. It includes Custodians, which are little robotic helpers that defend the city from intruders, but also make repairs using their spindly little arms. I thought that was a really neat concept. Meanwhile, the Targa Pylons are static defense installations that scare off intruders with their devastating laser beams. If we look at the back of the box, we can see the list of contents comprises 3 Custodians of Targa miniatures, 2 Targa Pylon miniatures with 30mm bases, 1 large enemy record sheet, 6 game cards, it's actually 7, and 1 rules reference sheet. And there are 2 reasons this expansion was top of the list of things I wanted to get. First, Targa Pylons are an enemy included in the City of Ancients core set, but Flying Frog were a bit cheap and only included cardboard tokens to represent these enemies. Naturally, I wanted the plastic replacements. Second, with just the inclusion of this box, the ancient city starts to feel more thematic. If you read the background information about the Targa Plateau and the city, you get told about towering automatons patrolling the snowy remnants of a dead alien civilization, where their robotic helpers are still following their core routines daily, and where defense systems flare into life to strike down unwary travelers. But not much of that is in the core box. You get the pylons as tokens, but all of the other enemies are alien creatures, spiders and tentacled gribblies. You don't really get that true sense of exploring a city filled with advanced tech. Yes, it makes sense that some unpleasant interdimensional nasties would have slithered into the decaying city to make it their home, but it's the futuristic technology that really gives the ancient city its character. Anyway, let's take a closer look at what we are getting here. There are 2 frames in the box for the pylons, 1 pylon per frame. These come in 3 parts and they are incredibly basic monolithic structures. I think having miniatures to replace the tokens is great. It gives the game a better table presence, and also makes it easier to tell at a glance where the enemies are positioned. That said, these miniatures aren't what I would call exciting. To put them together, you just sandwich the top point between the 2 side pieces, using a little plastic glue to keep it all together. It is probably worth noting that the peg on the top piece doesn't appear to be a perfect square, so it fits better when oriented in a particular way. Once assembled with glue, you won't notice it regardless, but if you assemble it the right way, the spire won't wobble around while your glue is setting. The pylons also come with 30mm lipped bases, which I have nothing to say about. You also get a single frame containing the 3 Custodians. I really like these. They sit perfectly on that line of being a bit creepy with their spindly little arms and spider-like bodies, while also looking like practical robotic designs. You can imagine these scurrying around the city repairing any malfunctioning pylons. I have to say, at first I thought I was missing a frame of components, because this frame only appears to have legs. But then I realised that the 3 little balls on the frame are the eyeball-like sensor arrays that sit on top of each Custodian. As each model comprises just those 2 parts, they go together very quickly and easily, with no real effort, and I think they look great. As with the Void Spiders in the core game, these miniatures don't have bases. I'm not a fan of that. I do prefer miniatures to have bases. It stops them getting hooked together in storage, makes it possible to magnetize them, and it keeps everything looking consistent. But there we are. I guess if I decide I'm not happy, I will have to buy some bases for them later on. These new beasties will show up in your games through threat cards as usual. The box includes 3 generic threat cards that will pop when you aren't in an otherworld location. 1 low threat spawning D3 Custodians in a Targa Pylon, 1 medium threat spawning 3 Custodians in a Targa Pylon, and 1 high threat spawning 3 Custodians and 2 Targa Pylons. I like the little bit of fluff text on the cards explaining why the Custodians are no longer in the ancient city. They are expanding their home by terraforming a part of the mine. That's fun. Unlike the Shikari Nomads, which I reviewed in a previous video, the Custodians don't ever venture far from home, so while you do get 3 otherworld threat cards, they are all for the Targa Plateau. There are 2 identical Custodians of Targa cards, which spawn up to 3 Custodians, plus an extra medium threat on the high threat level. Then there is 1 Custodian repair crew, which spawns up to 3 Custodians along with up to 2 Targa Pylons. The Custodians are quite a fun new enemy type. They are tough and they pack a punch. As usual, most of their rules are on a double-sided enemy record sheet, but you also get an additional double-sided card that fully explains their assault special ability. They are large, fast robots with initiative 4 and a move of 10. They roll 3 dice in close combat, hitting on a 3+ and causing 1 damage per hit, and they roll 2 dice for their lasers at up to range 8, causing 3 damage per hit. They have a health of 8 and a defense of 3, so they do tend to stick around, soaking up damage from dynamite, laser guns, and the most advanced gunslinger ammos. And to make things worse, if they start their turn without being adjacent to any heroes, they recover 2 health to themselves and all adjacent Targa Pylons and robot enemies thanks to their repair ability. Naturally, this incentivizes the heroes to close the distance and get into melee combat with the Custodians. But that comes with its own risks. When the Custodians activate, if they can't repair anything because of adjacent heroes, instead they electrocute all adjacent heroes, inflicting 3 automatic hits. After electrocuting people or healing robots, the Custodians will search for a target if they don't already have one. When they consider targets, they also include any damaged Targa Pylons. So they may decide to fight off the pesky intruders, or they may scurry off to perform repairs, which is a neat little characteristic. Once all Custodians have selected a target and moved, or elected not to move, their assault ability kicks in. They will zap their target with their defense lasers as they scurry in for the kill. If their target was a pylon, they will instead zap a randomly determined hero in line of sight. They can multitask. Of course, as heroes level up, so too will the Custodians. Their elite chart has some horrible bonuses on it, like additional health, an explosion that triggers when they die inflicting d6 corruption hits on all heroes within 3 spaces, or a more powerful laser that fires 4 shots instead of 2. And then there is the brutal side of their record sheets, where they stack on the health and their damage output increases dramatically. Now that is it for this box, other than a rules leaflet with a painting guide on the reverse, as all of the threat cards and the enemy record sheet for the Targa Pylons are included in the City of Ancients core set. Unfortunately, that could be a problem for anyone interested in this set who has decided to get involved with Shadows of Brimstone by purchasing the Gates of Valhalla first. Gates of Valhalla is a new core set which also uses the Targa Plateau as the other world, and therefore the Custodians and Pylons would be useful, but without the Targa Pylon enemy record sheet, you can't use those enemies. And because they appear on many threat cards alongside Custodians, that also makes using the Custodians more difficult to implement in your games as well. I really don't think it would have hurt to include the Pylon record sheet in this box. Yes, I know it's a very old set, conceived long before Gates of Valhalla was ever even thought of, but even so, it would have been nice to have all the components for these enemies available in one place. But I thought I would finish this video by talking about the Pylons briefly and showing both sides of their record card. The record cards may be available online to download somewhere anyway, and if they aren't, maybe this video will be helpful for someone who wants to make their own record sheets for these enemies. The Pylons are classed as hazards, not robots. They are large and have initiative 4, and because they are defense installations they never move, have no close combat abilities, and heroes can freely disengage from them whenever they wish. What they can do is hit you with powerful laser beams and soak up damage for days. They are health 8 with a defense of 4, which is bad enough, but they also have the ability Stonework, which means critical hits reduce their defense to 2 rather than bypassing their defense completely. They are one of the simplest enemies to work with in terms of their AI. They simply pick a target and blast them with one shot that hits on a 3+. If it connects, that converts into D6 hits, each of which does 2 damage. So, it could be a whiff, or it could be a devastating volley. As always, your fate will lie with the dice rolls. Their elite skills include additional health, regeneration, exploding on death to cause D6 corruption hits to heroes within 2 spaces, more powerful lasers, or worst of all, an alarm that adds an ambush to the combat. As you would expect, their brutal form makes them even harder to damage and increases the range and power of their laser guns. All very straightforward. I think the most interesting thing about the Pylons is they are exclusively ranged combatants. Unlike other enemies with ranged attacks who often shoot and then close in for the kill, the Pylons will always stay at the back of the room blasting you, and if you want to deal with them, you are probably going to have to cut your way through a horde of other enemies first. It adds a new kind of tension to the fights and gives the heroes something else to think about. But there we go, that is that. Overall, I'm happy to have added this enemy pack to my collection. I really wasn't keen on using the Pylon tokens, and I think the Custodians are a really fun and thematic enemy type that tends to stick around on the board for longer than some of the other enemies in the City of the Ancients core set. If you are looking for versatile enemies that could turn up anywhere, this pack probably isn't the right choice. These chaps are almost exclusively seen in Targa. But if, like me, you wanted to bolster your Targa forces or make that region feel a little more, automated, this is a good pack. And that is all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.